welcome to another episode of Was It Worth Watching? For those of you who have been keeping up and following my podcast, I appreciate the feedback in the comments. And for those of you who may be joining for the first time, I hope you like what you see and hear. And if so, please give me a like and a subscribe and continue to follow my podcast and Instagram and Facebook pages. All right, so for today's episode 11, I'm going to talk about the new comedy film, Fackham Hall, and the new sequel horror film, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So with that being said, let's get started. So our first film is Fackham Hall. This is basically a spoof film taking on the genre of films like Downton Abbey and Upstairs, Downstairs, and a lot of those other British films. And it basically revolves around an aristocratic family who's trying to keep their ancestral home and not lose it to one of their lesser relatives. So the plot is for basically the youngest daughter to marry this guy so that she can keep the property in their family's name. However, there comes a young guy who's from an orphanage, who's just a all-around thief and likes to steal things. But he, of course, falls in love with her and is trying to woo her over. But can a rich aristocrat fall in love and marry a peasant, so to speak? So what did I think about Fackham Hall? Well, just the title itself kind of tells you what type of comedy it is. As I mentioned, it's a spoof of films like Downton Abbey. Was it funny? I didn't think so. There were some scenes that I got a chuckle out of. Unfortunately, a lot of those scenes were in the trailer. I will say, though, that this movie kind of flew under the radar. I don't remember seeing a trailer for it at all in the many times that I've gone to the theaters. So I was quite surprised when I saw this movie. I actually caught it on one of those unknown film screenings where you don't know the name or what movie's being shown. You just go there and watch whatever they put on. When it started, as I said, I didn't see any trailers for this film, so I was a little confused in the beginning. I was like, oh no, is this one of those highbrow artsy fartsy movies about British rich people and stuff? So I was a little worried. And then I started to catch on with, there was a joke here, there was a joke there. And then you start to get the idea, okay, this is a spoof. This is a comedy. To me, the film got a little too silly. I mean, it tried too hard to be like the original Airplane movies or the original Naked Gun films. And I will admit, even to this day, I still watch those films, and there are some scenes I just roll my eyes. I'm like, that was dumb, So I won't sit here and say, oh yeah, Airplane and the Naked Gun movies were hilarious from start to finish. No, there were some scenes that were eye-rolling. And in this film, there were a lot of scenes that were eye-rolling. And some of the comedy was just so silly. I was shocked to see some of the reviews on Rotten Tomato. I just, I read through some of them and totally disagreed. But again, everyone has their opinion, and basically this is mine. So was Fackham Hall worth the watch? It was not. It definitely was not worth the watch. I wouldn't suggest going to the theater to see this film. I think it should stay under the radar and go straight to streaming. And then if you have a couple hours to kill, then have at it. Um, I think some of the comedy is British humor. So if you're a fan of Mighty Python, you might enjoy it, or you might enjoy some of the jokes. But if you're not a fan of Mighty Python and you're not a fan of British humor, some of these jokes will probably bounce off you right away. And a lot of the other jokes, like I said, are kind of silly. They're thrown in there just to try to get a chuckle out of you. And some of them were okay, but a lot of them missed the point. Like I said, I was shocked at the reviews on Rotten Tomato. Right now, it's sitting there at 80 something percent critics score on Rotten Tomato. At the time of this film or this taping, there was no real audience score, but there were some audience reviews, and a lot of them liked it. And I'm totally shocked. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Fackham Hall, the name says it all. All right, so our next film is Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So this is the sequel to Five Nights at Freddy's, based on the video game of the same name. And it revolves around, it's a year later after the events of the first film, where the characters are trying to go back to a normal life after their experience with the animatronic monsters in the first film. This film basically takes us to the original Freddy's or Freddy Bear, Fazbear, whatever his name is. It takes us to the original location where the first child murder happened, and we're taken into this new situation where the child that was murdered, her spirit is still within the building and wants to be free to get revenge on all adults because no one took her seriously when she tried to help a young victim before she was murdered. So what did I think about Five Nights at Freddy's 2? I have to be honest, I didn't like the first Five Nights at Freddy's. I've never played the video game, so I'm not a fan of the video game. So it kind of explains why there probably are a lot of people out there who like this film, like the first one, they like the second one, pretty much based on nostalgia and the fact that, like for a lot of us that have played video games, when you see a movie adaptation of a game that you used to play as a child, you kind of get excited. You get, like I said, nostalgic. But for me, just on the basis of a story and a horror movie, I don't think the first one worked. I don't think the second one works at all. I felt the story was weak, and I didn't think this second movie was worth it or even needed. I think it's a money grab, and unfortunately, and this is not a spoiler because I think a lot of people already know that there is going to be a third Five Nights at Freddy's. But overall, this movie wasn't scary. I thought the acting was horrible. And just overall, not a good movie, not a good horror movie. Not really that entertaining. I felt like I wanted to walk out several times watching this film, but I sat through it. And walked away feeling like, okay, that was a waste of time. So, was Five Nights at Freddy's 2 worth the watch? Or was it worth watching? It was not. It definitely is a film that could have went straight to streaming. I hope that the third one does go straight to streaming, so I don't have to worry about going to a theater to see it. It just, for me, didn't work. I was bored. I rolled my eyes several times because a lot of the dialogue was so cheesy and corny. Um, and if you didn't see the first one, you probably won't get a lot of the references that they make throughout the film that was in the first film. There's some comments, there's some lines that you would only know if you saw the first one. So, uh, if you want to be part of the inside joke, then I would suggest watching the first one before you go and see the second one. But do you need to? Is it worth it? Not really. They're not that poignant. So I wouldn't bother trying to go to the theater to see this film, wait for it to come on streaming. I definitely agreed with the critics rating on Rotten Tomato. It got like 11%, which is pretty bad. The audience score is much, much higher. And again, reading through some of the audience reviews, it definitely sounds like people who are nostalgic for the video game that liked this second part. I don't think anyone who really likes horror films would have thought this movie was any good. And I did see some reviews where people definitely didn't like it and said pretty much the same thing I just did, that the dialogue was corny, there were no jump scares, the movie was silly, the storyline was convoluted and kind of dumb. So yeah, not worth the watch. Don't bother with it. I didn't really have high hopes. Like I said, I didn't like the first film. So for me, I didn't go in thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be a great film. But I would have been pleasantly surprised if it would have been a good film. But it wasn't. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. And that was no good. So avoid it if you can. If you're a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, the video game, and you want that nostalgia and to see how it plays along with the video game story, then have at it. All right. So unfortunately for this week, we've got two not worth the watches. The first one being Fackham Hall, and the second one, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So as the Christmas holiday approaches, please check out my Instagram and Facebook pages for my daily fun facts, where I will start to post some fun facts about a lot of our favorite Christmas films. And hopefully within the next week or two, we'll finally get some films that are worth the watch. Hopefully more worth the watches than not. But again, it is the holiday season, so I'm not, based on trailers that I've seen in theaters, doesn't look like there's too much coming out in the month of December. But hopefully in the new year, starting in January, we'll have some films that will be worth going to the theater to go see. So until my next episode, keep watching what's worth watching. Bye.